Welcome back. Here watching Prime Property. The FADNAVIS government is contemplating changes to the Maharashtra Rent Control Act. If carried out, we will see rents zoom through the sky, especially in South Mumbai. Now you would imagine landlords would be cheering this move, but they aren't. Alexander Matthew takes you through the pros and cons.
Tenants in buildings like this one have been paying rent at rates frozen in time, as long back as the 1970s to be precise. But all that could change if Maharashtra's latest housing policy is implemented in its current form. The policy proposes to exclude commercial structures larger than 500 square feet and residential structures bigger than 862 square feet from the protection of the Maharashtra Rent Control Act. That means tenants used to paying rent as unbelievably low as 500 rupees a month will have to get used to paying market rents. The number of such buildings in Mumbai, according to tenant associations, is estimated at 40,000, 13,000 of which are in South Mumbai alone. Also, as much as 3 lakh shops are protected under this act.
I'm at Marine Lines, very close to Marine Drive and the famous St. Xavier's College. Marine Lines got its name from the Marine Battalion Lines, a military establishment built by the British in the 1800s. This may be one of the most coveted addresses in West India, but the rent in some of the buildings here is dirt cheap, as low as a few thousand rupees for a 2-bedroom accommodation. This rent could rise to over 1 lakh rupees if the Rent Control Act is amended.
The proposed amendments to the Act plan to cap rentals at 50% of market rates for the first 3 years. Additionally, rents will be capped at 30% of the annual income of the tenants. Senior citizens will have to pay 15% of their annual income or 50% of the market rate, whichever is lower. Tenants are already up in arms. Their main line of defense is the Pagdi system that requires tenants to pay 1/3 of the prevailing market value of a property to the landlord in exchange for a discounted fixed rent. The amount paid up front is non-refundable.
Technically, yes, we are the tenants, but actually by paying 1/3 premium to the landlord, we are as good as the owner of this property. And if we already paid Pagdi, and again we pay rent as on today's rate, which will go in lakhs. Right now we are paying in thousands and it will go in lakhs. It doesn't make any sense. Then again the same thing will apply to the commercial establishment in the form of Pagdi. They have paid crores. Residents pay lakhs, they pay crores. Today if you want to buy a tenanted property at Linking Road, one small 500 square feet, it will cost 5 crore rupees. So talking about more than lakh rupees square feet rent, and on that they give 1/3 to the landlord. So you can understand that is in the form of Pagdi. So after paying that much, and again you ask them to pay 50,000, 70,000 rupees a month, what kind of income they are going to get? They all will be wiped out.
But landlords are not rejoicing as you would imagine. Here's why. The proposed amendments put the onus solely on the landowners to improve the condition of old, dilapidated buildings, thus taking the responsibility away from the city's housing authority, MAHARA. Section 7.2 of the draft of the housing policy states, further, all such buildings, occupants, landlords will not be required to pay repair cess and MAHARA shall not be responsible to maintain such buildings. Further, it will be the sole responsibility of the landlord to maintain all such buildings in good repair and condition, and failure by the landlord to do so will attract penal provision, including for negligence as contained in the Indian Penal Code. Needless to say, this has not gone down well with the landlords.
That's the argument against the amendments. But there are several points being raised in favor of the government's plan. Substantially increasing the rent, especially pegging it to the market, would force landowners to revamp these dilapidated structures. They have no incentive for doing it now. Also, structurally improving these buildings would make them much safer to live in.
I think the government has generally taken a very bold step, but a necessary step to amend the act and bring out properties which are really in dilapidated conditions, and the owners of those properties are not able to look after those assets, and they're also unsafe. At the same time, when a city like Mumbai, which is a very old city, needs to be redeveloped, this actually becomes a hindrance if we don't remove it.
As rentals go up, there is likely to be a huge churn. Lakhs of tenants will be forced to look for more affordable options. This in turn will throw up opportunities for redevelopment and cluster development, something the Maharashtra government is very keen on doing.
The churn in tenants and possible evictions could lead to protracted legal battles. But even before we reach that stage, experts have pointed out that there are several gaps that need to be addressed.
The first major issue is how to reconcile the Pagdi system with the proposed new Rent Control Act. The proposed amendments do not address this issue. The second issue is the definition of annual income. It is not clear whether the tenant's individual income or family income will be considered when computing the increase in rent, and declaration of income is also viewed as a problem. Lastly, there is the issue of determination of market rent. As we told you before, several of these buildings are dilapidated, and that means their rent will not be at par with the newer constructions.
So I've taken you through the pros and the cons of the proposed amendments to the Rent Control Act. I'll be back on Prime Property to tell you when Devendra FADNAVIS tables these amendments in the State Assembly. In the meanwhile, you can send your feedback and queries to primeproperty@network18online.com. Signing off from Mumbai, Alexander Mackey.
Well, we're completely out of time for this week's episode, but do remember you can always send us your feedback, viewer queries, or even experiences with developers that you may want to share. Our email address is primeproperty@network18online.com. You can also tweet me. See you same time next week.